event, but like to welcome everybody here today. We are here with Tod Petersen. Tod is, I don't think you were born in Mankato, but you were raised in Mankato? Yes, and
Yes.
attended schools, and of course the son of Dwayne and Carol Petersen, who so many of the members of the Memoirs group know very well, probably know better than perhaps than Tod himself does. But just invited Tod here. Unfortunately, when we were talking, Tod was involved in what would have been a Music Man production at this time. Actually, I think we had scheduled perhaps a Monday or a Tuesday when you were either dark or available. And since then, of course, the apocalypse has hit and things are not happening as originally planned. But that just means we've got a little more time to speak with Tod. I've asked him to come here. I have been to several of the performances that he's been involved with, including A Christmas Carol Petersen, which is always a hoot. I've seen it at least once, maybe twice now. And just to talk a little bit about your life, your career, and how things have perhaps changed. I know they have changed since the pandemic has hit. So I will take this opportunity now to stop talking and introduce Tod Petersen.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for inviting me to do this, and thank you everybody for showing up. I moved to Mankato. I'm going to just start right in here. Okay. I moved to Mankato in 1964. I was born in Hawaii. I still do not understand why my parents ever decided to leave Hawaii. That doesn't make sense to me. But they took me back to visit when I was in my 40s, and the three of us had a wonderful time walking the beach, Dad and Mom pointing out the spot on the beach where I took my first steps, and pointed to the dilapidated parking lot where the old hospital where I was born, and hospital in quotes, once stood. Anyway, we had a very special week and a half in my birthplace. And so I ended up in Mankato in 1964, went to Washington School. I also wanted to mention I think most people know my parents, Dwayne and Carol, but I also have three awesome siblings that many of you will know. My brother Brian is a couple years older, and my shy sister Julie is 5 years younger, and Amy Ann is 12 years younger than me. And they're all wonderful, brilliant human beings that I admire very much and could entertain you as well as I could. So anyway, I think I was a shy kid, and I remember my parents were always good about taking the whole family to see shows. We went to shows, went to see plays at the area schools. I remember specifically going to Wilson and seeing a production of Wizard of Oz. And John Kind was in that, so was Arn Kind. And I remember sitting in the audience thinking, looking at those kids up there and thinking, I know how to do that. I think I can do that. I want to do that. And lucky for me, I had parents who were very supportive, and they encouraged me when I asked to audition. And the first plays I was in were at the Mankato Community Theater, directed by Bert Meisel, and Pat Meisel was a big part of that as well. Rip Van Winkle and A Christmas Carol were the first two. That was when I think I was 11 years old in 5th grade at Washington. And then I was in The Sound of Music at Bethany. And then I transferred to Wilson, where I had seen the Wizard of Oz, and which gave us, I'm going to assume that Mankatoans know what Wilson is. It was an experiential education, open school, and it gave us a lot of freedom to explore our talents and explore our naughty side. I'm thinking about smoking cigarettes out in the ravine, playing cards instead of going to class, playing basketball for 3 hours every morning. But we also managed to educate ourselves. And most importantly for me, I got to be on stage. And I remember being in a production of 10 Nights in a Ballroom, 10 Nights in a Ballroom, 10 Nights in a Bar Room. That doesn't sound right. And Charlie Brown with Chris Brown. She organized that production of Charlie Brown, and she actually played Charlie Brown. And I got to be in a production of Jesus Christ Superstar that was such a hit at Wilson that it got transferred. We took it to the ballroom, the Mankato State Ballroom, so more people could see it. And that was a really thrilling experience. We all had tie-dyed t-shirts. And do you remember in the 70s how we cut the sides of our jeans and inserted little triangles, large triangles of fabric? We all did that. So we had big bell bottoms. And I specifically remember crawling on the floor of the ballroom, crawling up to the stage. See my eyes, I can hardly see. See me stand, I can hardly walk. That was a thrill. And my parents also at that time let me try out for plays at the university. So I got to be, I think I was in 7th grade, and I got to be on the big Ted Paul stage. It wasn't the Ted Paul stage at that time. He was my professor, but the theater hadn't been named after him yet. And I was in Fiddler on the Roof, and I was in a summer production of Deadwood Dick. And my big memory, Dan Kind, I was in Fiddler on the Roof with Dan Kind and Sarah Bewin, those of you who remember the Bewin family. And I remember being super naughty. And when the college kids were on stage, I won't I'll get anybody else in trouble, but I'd steal cigarettes out of their jeans when they were in their costumes, and they'd go smoke out back. I was a bad kid. And I would climb up into the off-limits catwalk, if anybody has been backstage, and I would watch the show, watch the rehearsals from up on the catwalk. I was a little rule breaker, an outlaw. And I think that being, having that personality trait, that sort of daredevil, watch me, I can do, you might tell me I can't do this, but I'm gonna, served me as an actor, served me getting into theater on down the line. My parents took us out of Wilson after my 8th grade. I did 3 years at Wilson, and then I went to Mankato East, and I got to be in a lot of shows there. And the first one was Guys and Dolls, and in 10th grade. In 9th grade, I wasn't in a show, but in 10th grade, they had auditions, and I got into Guys and Dolls, and it was mostly seniors. Dan Kind again, we met up again, and he played Nathan Detroit. Ann Setzer, Rebecca Retmer, I don't know if these names ring a bell. Jeff Wood was in that with me as well. And that was a thrill. I played Arvide Abernathy, a role that my father ended up playing just a few years ago. But it was a year later, we did Oklahoma, and I got to play Will Parker, a role that I ended up playing, I think 3 more times. It was sort of a signature role, and my comedy skills, and I got to dance. I got to sing that Kansas City dance number, and that role of Will Parker really meant a lot to me. I got to use my comedy skills. I played opposite Sue Paulzine. Remember the Paulzine family? She was Ado Annie, and we just had a blast on stage. And then that was my junior year. Then my senior year, I proved myself as a dramatic actor, and I got to play Charlie in Flowers for Algernon. And that was another standout role. It was very serious. It was very difficult to play a person with a disability. I ended up doing research by visiting the special ed room at Mankato East. And it was there that I found a knack that I didn't know that I had for working with people with disabilities, which came in handy down the line. You'll hear more about that that part of my life in a few minutes. And then my senior year, my final role was as King Arthur in Camelot. And I wish I could tell you that that was a brilliant experience, but I think that Camelot is the most boring, the longest, dumbest play I've ever been in. I can't stand it. So that was not a thrill. But just to give you some ups and downs of the life in theater. And then took me just a little bit of time to launch myself into the real world. I hung around Mankato the summer after I graduated, and then that fall, they did the Music Man at Mankato State, and my partner at the time, Scott Ruffing, and we were living in his parents' cabin for free out on Duck Lake. And Dr. Wortman, Al Wortman, who I know you all know, convinced Scott and I to be in the barbershop quartet of the Music Man at Mankato State that fall, along with my father, Tod Petersen, who I believe you know as well. So the three of us had just a fabulous experience in the barbershop quartet.
Say, Todd, can I stop you for just a second?
Yeah.
I'm seeing that Steve has his hand up. I don't know if he's got a question that he wanted to ask.
Yeah, let me have it. I don't have my glasses on, so I'll be more attentive to the hands going up. What would you like to know, Steve?
Or maybe he did it accidentally, I'm not sure. Okay, well.
Okay.
I guess.
Cut me off, Steve, if you have a question. Anyway, after the Music Man, Scott and I worked up the nerve to move ourselves to Florida, and we packed up on our 1967, wasn't the Ford Fairlane, it was the Plymouth Fury, and packed it to the brim, and on January 1st, we drove to Florida. I had done summer stock at Mankato State. I'm realizing I sort of skipped over Mankato State. I had some highlights at Mankato State. I did Pippin, and that was a really surprising audition experience. It was the Highland Summer Theater that I had previously done, but I wasn't in the company the summer that they did Pippin. But I just loved Pippin, and I asked Dr. O'Lawson, C.R. Lawson, if I could audition, and he said, "Well, Todd, we have a company, and I will cast the people from the company." And I said, but can't I just audition? Maybe you'll have room for me in the chorus. And he said, "Okay, you can audition." And so I went in and did my best, and fingers crossed, and went to the cast list after the audition and looked at the chorus, and my name wasn't there. Oh, dang it. Okay, well, at least I got a chance. And then I went up to see who got the principal roles, and there it said Pippin, Tod Petersen. So that was a surprise and a blast, and just another one of those roles that meant so much to me. I still feel like Corner of the Sky is my theme song. Rivers belong where they can ramble, eagles belong where they can fly. I've got to be where my spirit can run free. Everybody gotta find my corner of the sky. And I was just in one of the greatest benefits at that time going to Mankato State for me was that I was able to be on stage all the time. If you go to a bigger school, I think you spend your first 2 years at that time taking classes and maybe being in student productions and class productions, but I was able to be on the main stage constantly. But also I had the opportunity to work in the pit, do shows in the pit. Remember when it was over by the bowling alley and the student union back in that dark basement-y area? And I also got to be in Ellis Street Singers. my college boyfriend Scott, who I've mentioned, he was in Alice Street Singers, and he convinced me to audition. And I spent 2 years um, touring with Doc Wortman and that gang, which was such a blast. And it was in Alice Street Singers. No, it was in Pippin, I guess, that I learned about this company in Florida called Musicana. And so Scott and I, when we packed up our bags to go to Florida, it was to specifically audition for this production company called Musicana that had jobs all over Florida and all over the East Coast, in Georgia, in outside of Washington, D.C., on Cape Cod, and they also provided 4-person casts to entertain on cruise ships. And this just sounded like Ellis Street Singers plus. let's go be in professional Ellis Street Singers. And we got down there and we auditioned, and Scott, so talented, got cast right away. And they told me that I wasn't ready. And that broke my heart. And while Scott went into rehearsals and went out on the road with his show, I got a job at the Greek restaurant around the corner from the little beach house where we were living. And I had another job at a Montessori school. And I started taking voice lessons. Again, I had studied at Mankato State with Laura Reed, another great Mankato name and personality. But I guess I wasn't as polished a singer as they were looking for. And so I worked my butt off for 6 months, going to my voice lessons, working on my legitimate voice. I'd always just sung loud and funny and didn't pay much attention to my vocal production. And I just always sort of sang, as I said, just loud and funny. But I learned some technique that I was lacking, and all throughout that 6-month period, I remained focused on getting Musicana to hire me, and eventually they did. And along with being a bit of an outlaw, I feel like there's a quality in me that even though I'm a quiet, gentle soul, I'm stubborn. And if there's something that I want, I'm gonna go for it, and I'm gonna not stop until I get it. And I think that not only did my voice improve with the lessons, but I think they saw my determination and my commitment to their company. So anyway, I got hired and I worked for them for 4.5 years, working all over, as I said, Cape Cod and Pine Mountain, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. And ultimately I got one of the top gigs going out on a cruise ship on the American Hawaii cruise line. And we went into rehearsal, and we had our 3 different shows all prepared, all choreographed and costumed and ready to go. And the cruise line canceled the contract. So I decided to take a break. I'd been working very hard for almost 5 years. And I went back to Minnesota and stayed at my parents' cabin. Scott and I had broken up, and I kind of took a breather, like, okay, what am I going to do next? And I stayed in my parents' basement out on Madison Lake, and on their cabin, the log cabin. And out of the blue, I got a call from a friend who I had met in one of my casts in Florida with Musicana, and they were looking for someone to play Rolf in The Sound of Music at the Fireside Dinner Theater in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. And so I thought, okay, I was going to go back to Florida, and I still might, but I'll go check this out. And so I went to the audition, got the part, and spent the next 5 years in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. And the first show I did was Sound of Music. I was playing Rolf, and I fell in love with the guy that was playing the captain. and he was a very talented, charismatic person, and he was less than kind. Um, I've mentioned cigarettes, but I've also I've had along with other qualities, good qualities. I've had a self-destructive streak, and like a lot of gay people who grew up in the 60s and 70s have struggled. I've struggled with addiction and depression, and one of my addictions, I'm afraid, was allowing myself to be treated poorly in relationships. And this guy, he had an apartment in Chicago, and he was sort of back and forth between Fort Atkinson and Chicago. And I said, hey, I could move to Chicago too. We could move in together. And he said, well, that's probably not a good idea, because I don't think you're talented enough to make it in Chicago. And I don't want to feel responsible for you when you fail. So I stayed with him for 4 years in my self-destructive way. And I was happy in Fort Atkinson, and this guy would come up and do shows every once in a while, and we had sort of had a long distance relationship. And then that relationship ended, and I fell in love again. Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin was I off there for a while?
Yep, you were off.
Am I?
Somebody muted.
Okay.
You back?
How long was I off? I can't hear you, Mike. I can't hear you, Mike. So I'm just going to continue. I don't know if you're muted, Mike.
You were only off about 3 seconds.
Oh, there's Dwayne.
All right. Okay. So anyway, Guy, I just had a fabulous time in Fort Atkinson. I never played any of the lead roles, but I just went from show to show to show, Fiddler on the Roof and Funny Girl and Meet Me in St. Louis and Mame, and I played supporting roles. And then Guy, this new boyfriend, he said, hey, let's move to Chicago. And I said, oh no, I can't move to Chicago. I'm not talented enough to make it there, and I don't want you to feel responsible for me when I fail. And he said, what are you talking about? Let's go. So we went, and I was scared to death of Chicago. Chicago is the third largest market for musical theater after New York and Los Angeles. And I just didn't quite know if I was going to be able to hack it, especially after listening to this other guy. But I have a stubborn streak, and I started training. I started taking acting classes again and voice lessons and going to every single audition. And I got cast right away at a summer theater outside of Chicago in Warsaw, Indiana, called the Wagon Wheel. And I got to play some really great roles there. What's his name? Petersen in Bye Bye Birdie. Albert Petersen in Bye Bye Birdie, and George in She Loves Me, which is another favorite role of mine. I don't know if you know that little beauty of a musical, She Loves Me, but it's a favorite. And I became a leading man. I went from supporting actor to playing the lead in Warsaw, Indiana. And that really boosted my confidence as I auditioned in Chicago. And the second season that I was in Indiana, they announced auditions at one of the big dinner theaters, Drury Lane in Oak Brook Park, for It's a Wonderful Life, a musical version of It's a Wonderful Life. And I thought, I think I could play that part. I think I would be a good George Bailey. So I got the sides, the audition material, Memorized all the lines before the audition, memorized all the songs, and got a call back for the role. And there I was there were 5 other guys that were called back for George Bailey. It was a coveted role, an important role, and I was a nobody. I had just done 2 little shows at a small little theater in the suburbs, the Apple Tree Theater, so far in Chicago, and my work in the summer stock didn't really count in Chicago. So nobody knew who I was at this callback, and the other guys I knew. I had seen them on stage. They were successful, and anyway, my preparation and my determination got me the part, and I got to play George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, and it was a big ooh la la moment for me in Chicago, Illinois, the place where I'd been told I wasn't talented enough to get any work. And sometimes I would run into that old boyfriend that had told me that at auditions, and inside my head, I'd think, nah, 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 nee, 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 nee. Because he wasn't working that much. Anyway, I'm not a saint. So I had 5 great years in Chicago, but sadly my relationship with Guy went sour, and we were having problems breaking up. We kept getting back together, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go to Minneapolis, gonna go live with my sister Julie, and we gotta make this breakup stick, because it's not working. And so I went and found an apartment. I went back to Minneapolis just to visit, and Julie said, I have a friend who has an apartment you could rent. And there was a brief time I forgot to mention after I graduated, before we went to Scott and I went to Florida, that I did move to Minneapolis for a short time, and I worked at a group home for people with disabilities. Because I'd ended up getting a special education degree at Mankato State along with my theater degree to have something to fall back on. And so here I was, it was time to fall back. So I needed a job, and I went to this group home, and I had been gone for 15 years, 5 years in Florida, 5 years in Wisconsin, 5 years in Chicago. But the woman who was running the group home, her partner remembered me, and I got the job. So I spent a year as a program director at this group home before I started up again, auditioning for theater in Minneapolis. And I did the AIDS ride at that time. I had 8 friends die of AIDS, and in the 80s and early 90s, and I wanted to pay tribute to their friendship and to my, gratitude. I wanted to address my survivor's guilt. So I did the AIDS ride and rode my bike to Chicago, and which was very symbolic, having just left Chicago. But then after a while, I felt ready to audition again. And I looked at the audition announcements and saw that there was an audition at Illusion Theater for a show called Hey Boy, a musical review about gay men's lives directed by Peter Rothstein. And I thought, okay, here we go. Let's get it going again. I'd had almost a year off, and that was a very serendipitous audition. I got the part, and Peter Rothstein, who I'm not sure if you know him, but he's a very successful director in the Twin Cities. He runs Theater Latte Da. That's his baby. He directs everywhere at Children's Theater and the Guthrie and all over. And he and I became fast friends, and he continued to cast me in show after show after show. And one of my social devices at that time was to be, I wasn't really comfortable at parties. I was shy. So I would oftentimes entertain. I was the stereotypical drunk with the lampshade on his head. And I would do this imitation of my mother at these parties. And I don't know if I told you this, and if I have, you just go ahead and stop me. But your father and I just had dinner over at the Webster's a couple days ago. Oh, kid, it was so delicious. Polly's skills in the kitchen are just wonderful. And the meal, so rich. And the dessert, just chocolate on chocolate on chocolate. So many calories. I took one bite and I wanted to vomit. Anyway, that was the shtick. And Peter fell in love with it. And he said, let's do a show. And so we put together a cabaret with my stories about my mom and my family. And Peter came up with the title, and the title was, "Oh Shit, I'm Turning Into My Mother." And he added music. There were two women, Amy Bryant and Katie Hayes, who are dear friends of mine, still 20 years later, and they sang mother-related songs, and we were a big hit. We just immediately, it took off, and we started at the Bryant Lake Bowl, and we got great press, and we were sold out. And Peter said, let's take it to New York. And he booked a couple weeks at the Duplex Cabaret in the East Village, and rather the West Village, right by Stonewall, actually, and on Christopher Street. And we had two very, I can't say we were sold out, but we had two very well attended weeks, enough that they asked us to stay. So I stayed for 2 more weekends, and that was definitely a highlight. The Time Out New York magazine had their pick of the week, and one of those weeks, there were, under the cabaret section, there were 2 picks of the week, and one was Liza Minnelli, and the other was, "Oh Shit, I'm Turning Into My Mother." So that made me feel good. And I continued. We came back and we did the show 4 more times in the Twin Cities, and then Peter said, "Now we need a holiday version." And so he again came up with the title, A Christmas Carol Petersen, and they were all new stories and all new songs, but virtually the same setup, where I would tell stories about my family, do my exaggerated imitation of my mother and my father and my siblings and my neighbors. The Meisels made an appearance, and that was a big hit too. We performed that 7 seasons at the old Loring Playhouse on Loring Park, and then 2 seasons at the Ordway. Took, I think, 8 years off, and then just did a couple years ago, did 2 seasons at the Ritz Theater, which is Theater La Tedda's home theater. And all along that, as I'm doing those shows, those family shows, I was a working actor. And I worked primarily at the Chanhassen Dinner Theater and a lot at Illusion Theater. I was working all the time. And I had told my parents way back when, when I said, Scott and I are moving to Florida to be actors, and they were like, really? You have a good job at this group home. I said, no, don't worry about me. I'm going to be a blue collar actor. I don't have stars in my eyes. I just want to make my living as an actor. I'll take any crappy job that comes along, just enough, just to pay the bills. And if I can't, if it doesn't work out, I have special ed to fall back on, or I can, don't worry about me. And that was always my goal everywhere I went, to be a blue collar actor. It didn't matter to me. I liked being the star. I liked being a leading man, but I didn't mind I never minded being the tall guy in the back row of Shapoopy. I give me a gig and I'm happy. And that has remained true to this day. I love the atmosphere of the dressing room. I love the guys hanging out with the guys in the dressing room. I love knocking on the girls' dressing room door. You know, boy, can a boy come in? And going and gossip, getting a little hit of estrogen when the boys' dressing room gets a little grody. I love hanging out in the green room with the kids. I've done lots of kids shows. I've done The Sound of Music 4 times, and The Music Man, this was my 5th time. Lots of kids shows. Annie twice. I've always enjoyed playing Uno with the kids and bananagrams, and I made up this game with the little girls with fashion magazines called Like, Don't Like, and you just go from page to page and you just point at the outfits and you say like, don't like, don't like. And that's a really good game. Also had a very special time when I was in Fort Atkinson. I had a little girl who was my friend. She was Gretel in The Sound of Music, and Tootie in Meet Me in St. Louis, and she was just my buddy. And I asked her parents if we could read To Kill a Mockingbird together, and they said yes. And so at intermission, Casey would crawl up on my lap. You can't do that anymore. No kids on the laps anymore. But Casey would crawl up on my lap, and I would always play Atticus, and she would always be Scout, and then we'd trade off on Jem and Calpurnia and all the other characters. And we read through the book, and it's really one of the top highlights of my life is the moment, the last page when we closed the book, and little Casey just looked up at me and smiled. Casey's now a mom. She has 4 kids. She's still my friend. I've held on to my kid friends over the years. That's been a really, really wonderful part of my job, is being a buddy to the kids. I kind of backtracked there. Oh, so Minneapolis is going great, but there was a pause there right around 2000, and I didn't have any jobs coming at me, and I was like, okay, time for a day job. And I looked in the want ads, and there was a posting for a job at Interact, Center for the Visual and Performing Arts in Minneapolis, looking for somebody to teach musical theater to adults with disabilities. And it just felt like a perfect fit. And I applied, and she said the boss had other applicants whose resumes were far better than mine. Mine was, basically The Music Man, Sound of Music, Oklahoma, Hello Dolly, Music Man, Sound of Music, Oklahoma, Hello Dolly. And there were people who actually had arts administration degrees and awards, and I was not a good candidate. But I leaned in. I remember leaning in on her desk, and I said, listen, you got to give me this job. I know I'm the person for this job. I know it in my heart, in my guts. And she gave me the job. And I was there for 12 years, off and on, as I'm a working actor. Sometimes I would have to leave Interact if I had too many shows booked. But I became a writer. I wrote songs. I wrote shows for these brilliant, juicy, alive people with disabilities. One of my greatest hit songs was Too Many Chromosomes to Drive a Car, sung by a dude with Down syndrome. And that Interact group, we traveled to England and Vancouver and New Orleans. We took our shows on the road, and those 12 years were just so fabulous, so fulfilling. And I wasn't in the spotlight. I was at the piano, in the wings, and yet the feeling of accomplishment, the feeling of pride was better than any any Drury Lane It's a Wonderful Life moment, or any just as good as Liza Minnelli in New York moment. Supporting and fostering the talents and the stories, telling the stories of these people with disabilities was such a highlight. And toward the end of those 12 years, a project opened up. Um, there was a hospital for children with disabilities in Thailand that had discovered us somehow, and two of us went over to help them start a program. And Thailand just absolutely changed my life. I spent 2 winters there developing this program. And I don't know, I think I always said it was breathing the Buddhist air. I don't know what happened in Thailand, but I was able to really address my issues with depression and addiction. I had, just before my first trip to Thailand, I had one of the deepest and darkest chapters with depression and addiction. It was almost a year long where I was barely leaving my apartment only to get to work and to get home. I was using marijuana to self-medicate. It was a beautiful summer, I remember, and I had the windows all closed all summer. I was shut down and depressed. I mean, I'm not the only one with depression. I'm not the only one who've had to address their relationship with addictions and their relationship, their self-defeating, self-destructive, self-hating. That's a strong word, but there was an element of self-hate in my life story. And theater, performance, accomplishment, the spotlight was a wonderful, wonderful Band-Aid. It really helped. It was a balm to my troubled soul all along, but there were deeper issues that needed to be addressed. And my respite in Thailand set me on a path of healing that I have remained on. And for the most part, I've had my ups and my downs, and it hasn't been a perfect path of sobriety or depression. I still have, it's a daily, I don't want to say struggle, a daily challenge to keep myself in the light and to keep myself in a world of self-love without the crutch of applause. And I am so grateful for the applause. I needed it. I desperately needed it. But I needed something deeper even more. And I guess I just feel like I would be remiss if I didn't address that part of my story. When I got back from Thailand, the first time I fell in love again with my current husband, Ryan. Our 7th anniversary is coming up. We've been together for 9 years. He went back to Thailand with me. And then the Thailand project closed and I ended my 12 years at Interact. It was time to move on. And he said, and I was brokenhearted. I really missed Interact, and I really wanted to get back to Thailand. And Ryan said, let's find something else. You know, when one door closes, another one opens. And he went online and he found a little school in San Juancito, Honduras, called La Escuela Mágica, the magic school, where we taught. We spent 2 winters in this mountain village in the name of the mountains is going to escape me. It'll come to me. Teaching music. Ryan taught guitar to the kids. I taught flauta, the little plastic recorder, and we learned Christmas songs and folk songs, and we put on a Christmas show for the village. And these experiences of service are also a part of the healing. There was a time, and I can't tell you exactly when, but my work on stage, I was greedy, and I guess it must have happened in Chicago, because I really felt the drive to prove myself and to prove my talents, and I was competitive, and I would go to auditions and I'd see the other guys there and I'd say, oh, he's no good, I can beat his ass, and oh, well, you watch out, you know. It was this little internal monologue that I would use to jazz myself up, to get revved up, to go get the job, and it worked. I was successful, and it didn't feel great. These guys are my friends, and I'm using a negative tape about them to get the job. And I heard myself, and I thought, there's got to be a better way. And so I remember thinking, I'm gonna change that when I go to auditions. And I started saying, let me be of service. If this is the role for me, if this is the show for me, if this is the experience for me, let it be. And let me be of service. Let me be of service to the play, to the cast, to the audience. And if it's somebody else's gig, let it be their gig. Let me take out this judgment and this negativity, and let me be happy for these other guys that get the job. And that was really key. And I started backstage. I was never an overly nervous performer, but I had nerves. But I started it, rather than worrying about, do I know my lines, or what if this happens, or what if I screw up, I started, as I would stand backstage ready to make my first entrance, I would think, let me be of service. Let my performance, let my time on this stage help the audience, delight my coworkers, let laughter, let my knack for humor come through, and let it lighten the mood. Let me be of service. And by putting the energy, rather than that, oh, what about me? What if I F up? What if I mess up? What if they don't like me? To turn that around and let me be of service. Let me touch somebody. And if making a huge mistake, making a huge biff on stage, which I am prone to do, if somebody in the audience needed to see somebody, a professional actor on stage, forget their lines, or forget their lyrics, or stumble over their lines, if they needed to see somebody's fallibility, somebody's humanity, let it be me. And Ryan, still to this day, when I come home from the theater, Ryan will say, how was the show? And I say, fine. I don't know, good. Because it's over, it's done. I did my thing. And I don't know, even if I didn't do it, in my opinion, even if I didn't sparkle as much as I'm capable of sparkling, maybe Charlotte or Dave needed to see a less sparkly version of me. I don't know. Let it be. And that shift into using the spotlight to bandage my wounds, and shifting that to letting the experience comfort and heal and serve my audience. That not only changed my work, but it changed my life. And then I was, around that time, it was after that I was given the opportunity to do Oh Shit, I'm Turning Into My Mother, that I was able to do these shows, A Christmas Carol Petersen, and the shows at Interact, that I was given these opportunities that weren't spotlight driven, that weren't ooh la la, up in lights, Tod Petersen. And those have been the most meaningful. Working with a little girl, writing a version of The Little Mermaid in Thailand for a little girl who can't use her legs like the Little Mermaid can't. you know, and then having all her friends swimming around as guppies and swordfish and octopus. And nobody saw that show. It was in Chiang Mai, Thailand, but I was able to serve, and those heartfelt experiences. Watching a kid in San Juancito, Honduras, La Tigra Mountains, at the base of the La Tigra Mountains. His name was Edouard, and he just had a knack for that flute, for the flauta, that little plastic recorder. And I would teach him and the others, and he was kind of a dick. He had the macho Latino. Yeah, I'm generalizing, but he was impatient with the other students. You know, let's go. And so I would give him private lessons, and he could just do. I would teach him a song, and the next day he'd come back and he'd have it perfect. And the day we left, I had been gifted of a flute, a silver flute, a real deal flute. And the last day, I had kept it under wraps. I didn't take it to the school. I kept it at our casita. And the last day I gave it to Edouard, and told him that I couldn't teach him how to play it, but somebody could someday. And I don't know where the silver flute is now, but Edouard has it, and he has the talent to master it. And those are the experiences that have meant so much to me. After all the Thailand and Honduras thing, there was another chapter. In Lanesboro, Minnesota. Ryan and I had an opportunity to go be company members at the Commonwealth Theater. I wasn't able to act there because they're a non-union house, and I'm a member of the Actors Union. But Ryan was starting his theater career, so it was a perfect situation for him, and I was hired to direct and teach. And we put on a fabulous production of Woody Guthrie's American Song. And as fabulous as that experience was, the rest of the experience was not good. Not good. So we got out of there like the day after Woody Guthrie closed. It was an unhealthy environment, not for us. And we didn't know what was next. And so I said, well, let's go, you know, we had been gone with a couple years with a session of a winter in Honduras. And then I think we were I was in Lanesboro for about 18 months. Well, let's go back to the Twin Cities. I might be forgotten. I hadn't had nobody called me, and I felt a little sheepish, like coming back with my tail between my legs. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And then life just kept throwing gifts at me. And I worked at the Ordway for the first time. I did a production of The Sound of Music. I did a big, fabulous production of Gypsy with Theater La Teda at the Pantages. I worked at Children's Theater in the world premiere of Diary of a Wimpy Kid. I played the dream role of the man in chair in The Drowsy Chaperone at Artistry. I played Bobby V in the Bobby V story, the older Bobby V. There was young Bobby V and old Bobby V. And then after 8 years on hiatus, A Christmas Carol Petersen came back. And then right after that, I got to go play the dream role of Zaza in La Cage aux Folles up at the Duluth Playhouse. So after our hippy dippy experiences in Thailand and Honduras, and this half wonderful, half terrible experience in Lanesboro, and this what's next, I don't know, I had the most brilliant year career-wise of my life. And that whole time, the whole year, I felt like I did 2 commercials. I was like, I feel like I can't go to an audition without booking it. I'm golden. But I would say, but I've been doing this for a while, and I know that what goes up must come down. And I am going to enjoy every minute of 2016, because who knows what 2017 is going to be. And I, it went dead. It just went dead. And as it does, as it has, as it will. And then the Chanhassen, I got going again at the Chanhassen and did Newsies and Holiday Inn, and I just got to be in Mamma Mia for a month, and the Music Man was running for a week. And these last few shows at the Chanhassen I've returned to being the working actor, the blue collar actor. I haven't had great big roles. I did play the one of the dads in Mamma Mia, but I was just happy to be with the guys in the dressing room, and knock 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 with the girls, and like don't like with the little girls, and bananagrams. Just happy to be in this environment that has always embraced me and encouraged me and fulfilled me and challenged me and defeated me at times. But it's a world that I know and I love, and I'm so grateful to my mom and dad for saying yes, for driving me to all those auditions and driving me to the rehearsals. That was not nothing. They gave up a lot of their own time to take me to these shows. When I was working in Florida, they were Carol and Dwayne, seeing every show. When I was in Wisconsin, they didn't miss a show. I remember once my dad was looking at my resume, and I forget what the show was. It was I was in La Cage aux Folles in a small part in Chicago, and Dad was looking at my resume, and he said Mom and Dad hadn't been able to see that one. They hadn't been able to drive all the way to Chicago. And I remember Dad saying, "Oh, La Cage aux Folles. I didn't get to see that one. I would have liked La Cage aux Folles." He didn't want to miss one of them. So right now, I don't know what's next. I don't know, the Music Man, we were contracted for 8 months. We got 1 week out of that 8-month contract. We are told that we will, when we're able, we will be able to come back and complete our contract. The Chanhassen is so generous. They're paying for our union benefits, our health. We're not getting our salary, but we're getting our health benefits and our pension benefits. That at some point that their generosity and kindness will have to bow to financial practicality. And I don't know. I'm being patient, and my husband is a successful real estate agent, so I have that benefit that financially we're not freaking out. But I have learned to live with the question marks of life, and we'll be fine. I'll be fine. You'll be fine. Mom will be fine.
How is Mom doing, by the way?
Good. I talk to her almost every day, and
Good.
she would like to come home. She has a great spirit. She keeps a really good spirit, at least when I'm talking to her. I'm sure she has her downtime. Dad might know more than I do, but they're not really sure what's causing all the pain. There's no fracture that they can see. There might be, what are they called? The little teeny ones that you can't see. Hairline fracture.
Oh, hairline, yeah.
And it might be some arthritis, dormant arthritis, but she's still in pain. And Dad visits and looks after her, and the sibling team, my brilliant siblings and I, we're all visiting and keeping in close touch. We have a good sibling team.
Well, yeah, with my work at MSU, I've followed a lot of the alums in the last 15 or 16 years as they go up there. And for me, it's always fun to see them cast in a show, and then I'll pull up the cast list, and there's Tod Petersen. And it's like, I wonder if they realize the connection. Have you had a lot of connections with other MSU theater alums?
Yeah, I usually figure that out. There was a bunch recently, Adam Moen and Emily Jansen and Emily Elofson. No, not her.
She's just a friend.
Trey Searles.
Hmm.
There was a big influx from Mankato.
Yeah.
And then there's another group after me, the Aaron Schwabs and Eric Nelsons and Jim Lickscheidels, who are maybe 10, 15 years after me. Mankato State is well represented in the theater.
Anybody have any questions for Tod? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have one. A question, not a mute, that is.
I'm wondering if you remember the Music Man at Mankato State. My daughter, Dory Schreier, was the girl who dropped the book in the library.
My memory is good. It's not that good. Dory Schreier, but that name is familiar to me.
Yeah.
But she was a kid. She was one of the...
She was about 15, 16, something like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't remember the book drop, but...
She became a professional skater.
Oh.
And she skated in Cypress Gardens and Busch Gardens and Kings
Where is she
Island.
now?
She's in Cincinnati raising her family and teaching skating.
Really? The skating?
Yeah, her name is Dory Murray now.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I'm
I'm sure she remembers you. I'm going to have her watch the recording when that becomes available. She remembers your dad.
Good.
Tod,
Yes?
it's Linda.
Yeah.
You are such a gifted writer. So are you spending some of this time possibly writing something?
I don't know. I don't have great, I'm not very disciplined. I need a deadline. Any writing that I've done that's been produced, like at Theater La Teda, I've had a deadline. But yes, I am working on something. I'm working on when Ryan and I were in Honduras the first year, it was right after we got married, and I wrote a weekly, I guess, blog. I didn't have a blog, but I just posted it on Facebook, and people really responded to that. And I want to put that together, a theatrical storytelling format with the music that we taught the kids, Honeymoon in Honduras. Because that was kind of a crazy honeymoon, going two gay guys getting married and then going to an extremely homophobic and murderous, the murder capital of the world. Our little village was safe, but Honduras is not a safe place. So we just pretended to be missionaries. But anyway, that's what I'm working on, is adapting that. But I write every day, Linda. I just don't. It's for me. And sometimes I post them. Yes?
Yeah, Tod, I'm in memoirs with your dad and Linda, but I grew up in Minnesota in the town of Alexandria, where St. Cloud State had summer theater, and they allowed high school kids to do the ushering. So I just want to thank you for the magic that even a teenage usher feels when inside a brick theater on a hot summer day, and now it's night and it's cool and the lights go down, right? And then whatever the stage design is, it can be really abstract. It usually was there. Then you get to have that magic, and I'll never forget it. So thanks for being part of that.
You're welcome. I all these years later, I can still feel the air conditioning and smell the smell of Highland Summer Theater. Those side stairs that I ran up and down as an actor, and went up and down as an audience member. I can still feel the brisk air conditioning and that smell.
So I have one question. Now my memory is starting to bring more things forward. Of course, there was intermission, right? And I remember we'd go out in the lobby and get something to drink, and all the actors had their photos on the wall in the lobby, and they were stark black and white glossy photos, 8x10. And it was so artistic. And I just didn't know if that's fairly common in theater.
It was, but now the style has changed, and just maybe in the last 10 years, and we've been using color headshots, those professional 8x10s. I miss the black and whites, but I actually think, like, how long are those headshots? I think when I go to the audition, why don't I just take a selfie and send it to the stage manager? Because that's what I look like today. You know, the headshots, sometimes those headshots get outdated and people are still using them 4, 5, 10 years later. They look nothing like who they are.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
This is Jan Prain,
Hi,
and
Jan.
I'm also in Memoir Group, and I did get to see you at Theater La Di Da in Christmas Carol Petersen. And I just want to thank you. And I was impressed with your sharing of your approach to being of service. And I'm also concerned about how actors maintain when it is an up and down thing. I just received something from the Guthrie today. I do go to the Guthrie 4 times. There's a bus that leaves Mankato. And I've always thought that art is food for the soul. And yet, when it comes to programs, especially in a school, one of the first things that might be cut would be, music or theater. So my heart goes out to all of these people right now. I mean, that are without income, and also the theaters themselves. So
People are freaked out. I'm not freaked out. I guess I'm far enough along in my career and my life that I'm not freaked out about the loss of theater. I think it's going to have to change.
mhm.
I don't think it's going to look like it's looked. I don't know what's going to happen, and maybe it'll be back to normal. You know, for a while there was this hashtag, it's only an intermission. It's just an intermission. This pause right now, and I'm like, I think it's longer than an intermission. I think we have to find a new way to do it. And I guess I mentioned, Linda asked her question, and lucky for me, I'm a storyteller, and I can stand on stage by myself and do my work. But the Music Man, if the Music Man comes back, can Harold Hill and Marion, they can't be singing in each other's faces. They can't be shooting droplets of anything into each other's face. They can't kiss. They can't, and then can the audience gather as they've gathered? It's a big question mark. But as I said, I'm not freaked out. Life is long, and I'll do something.
Well, do most actors have a second profession? They don't.
Well, I mean, there are different levels of I don't want to use the word professional, but experience. And I mean, the people who are working at the Guthrie and at the Chanhassen, and they don't typically have side jobs, or their side job is doing commercial work, or some are photographers taking the headshots. Many are teachers, but a lot of actors, especially the Guthrie actors, they're just actors, and a lot of the Chanhassen actors are just actors. And I think Trader Joe's is going to get a lot of applications coming up.
I know in 2013, I did a sabbatical from MSU Theater, and I talked with several alums, and one of them was Jim Lickscheitel, who was working at the Guthrie Theater. And Jim said when he knew he had made it was when he felt comfortable putting on his tax form, occupation actor.
Right.
And that had not happened that many years before. And Jim is a very successful actor.
One of the most.
It takes a long time to reach that point. But I was wondering, I remember, Todd, that I saw you in a production, Elwood P. Dowd, as in Harvey. And I was trying to remember if that was in Albert Lee.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering, you've played that role several times, haven't you?
No.
Oh, you haven't?
No, just that once. I had to beg for it.
Oh, okay.
I had to barter for it. I really wanted it, and he didn't want to give it to me. And then they were also, that same summer, they were doing Phantom, and he could not cast the role of the Phantom. And he came to me and I said, dude, I am not the Phantom. I don't sing like that. Anytime that I play a dark character like that, I fail. I don't want to play the Ding Dong Phantom. And I said, but if you let me play Elwood P. Dowd, I might think about it. So I got to play Elwood P. Dowd and had to play the Phantom, which actually was kind of...
I was wondering if you have any connection with that character of Elwood P. Dowd. It seems like somebody who you would, if not relate to in a one-on-one way, just kind of be able to understand and appreciate the character.
I do. There's a monologue from Harvey that I still use in auditions. Yeah, I relate to him on a number of levels. One is just the Jimmy Stewart level, because some of my big roles, It's a Wonderful Life, Harvey, and She Loves Me is a version of when Jimmy Stewart was in it. It was called, not the Judy Garland version, was It's in the Good Old Summertime. The Shop Around the Corner. It's the same story. So I relate to it I'm sort of a Jimmy Stewart kind of character, but also his madness and his dreaminess, and his I am a head in the clouds kind of person. My marriage is successful because my husband is, I always say, he is earth and I am sky. He keeps us grounded, and I say, let's go to Thailand. Let's move to Lanesboro. Let's do this. I'm the dreamer, but he's getting dreamier, and I'm getting groundeder. So yeah, I love Elwood P. Dowd. And now I want to play it again. I forgot about that one. Let's get that. Now I'm a good age for it. I was a little young.
I don't know how to get on.
You're on.
You're on.
Am I on, Bev Stover?
Is this
Oh, okay. Hi, Todd. I
Hi,
want to
Bev.
say you just reminded me that I was one of the few that got to see Music Man, because we went the first week. We were given a gift certificate by our niece, and I was so happy that we got to see it. But of course, we've seen many of yours plays and always appreciate it. And you're just such a fine human being.
Thank you,
You
Bev.
take after both your mom and dad. And it's just a pleasure to know you.
You're a good one too, Bev.
Well,
You're a very kind,
Well-
light-hearted, fun person.
well, if we can get through this COVID ID, it's beginning to drain on me.
Yeah.
So, Anyway, thank you for doing this afternoon. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yes, has anybody else got any questions?
I do.
Okay. Hi, Jill.
Mike, this is Mike. What's your name? Todd? This
Yeah.
is Jill Evans. I couldn't get my camera to work. I apologize for that.
Can you
But-
see me?
Yeah, oh gosh, yes.
Oh.
And so what I wanted to say was that when I see you, I still see the young boy, the young man, because we grew up together
Yeah.
at the Centenary Methodist Church and so
Right.
forth.
And while I was owning the stage at Mankato East, you were owning the stage at Mankato West. Jill was Dolly.
The bells are ringing for. Anyway, so Todd, you're speaking to a group of us who are now probably most of us over 60. I know how old you are.
I am 61.
I am extremely envious of the fact that you are in a career where you have been able to continue to work and continue to age beautifully, gracefully, and theater has just followed you from the time you were a child until now in these years. Speak a little bit, if you would, and I know it's hard, but to what it's like for you to be you're now a senior actor, right? I mean, I hate to put a label on you because you could still play Elwood P. Dowd, right?
Right. Sure.
But you know, I guess all of us are kind of in a different season of our lives, and there's some really good things that go with that, and there's some real struggles that go with that. And just kind of curious. Hi, Ryan. Just kind of curious what just give us a little thing on aging.
The first thing that comes to mind is that I was just on the cast of The Music Man gets together every Tuesday for a happy hour at 5, a Zoom. I get to see them. And last week, the women were talking about the COVID and not being able to get their hair dyed, and should they let it go gray, and I'm not ready to go gray, and oh, should I? And I chimed in and said, I worry about the day. It's such a gender connected, gender biased topic, because I worry about the day that a director would say, Todd, will you please dye your hair? You're too gray. Because I like the way I'm aging. Not everything, but I don't mind going gray, and I don't mind losing my hair, and I've always been a character actor. So I've never had a lot of vanity about looking good on stage. In fact, I like looking ridiculous. I like looking crazy. I've always taken opportunities to make a weird hairdo or just look terrible. I don't care. I think it's funny. I think it's fun. So that part of it is okay. The opportunities are dwindling, and I'm in the Music Man now. At the Chanhassen, I was in it in 2002 as well, and I was in the Barbershop Quartet. I was in the Barbershop Quartet of the Music Man 4 times, at MSU, and Fort Atkinson, in Chicago, and at the Chanhassen. And when I went to the audition this time, I thought, oh, I'm a shoo-in. I've already played the role. It's my role. And I didn't get it. A younger man got the part, and I'm the tall, old guy in the back row of Shapoopy. And that stung a little bit. I was like, wait a minute. That's my part. But I like as I sort of touched on, I like the guy who got the part. So I actually played opposite him in La Cage aux Folles in Duluth. He's my dear friend, my stage husband. I just love him. So he got my part, and he got my costume. Actually, he's wearing the same costume I wore 18 years ago. So I guess it's a mixed bag. Maybe that's what I'm getting at. That I do feel like I am gracefully letting go of the glory of youth, but still feeling the sting of rejection. And honestly, thinking about, okay, I also use the phrase that's one of my mantras: life is long, and I don't have to be an actor for the rest of my life. I don't have to do this. I've succeeded, far exceeded any of my expectations. I just wanted to be in a play. I just wanted to sing and dance. So any success that I've had is, I just wanted to be a blue collar actor, and I am satisfied. I am more than satisfied. There are some roles that I'd still like to play and some experiences I'd still like to have, but if I don't get to, I can't complain, and I won't complain. And but I'd still like to be in the game, you know. I'm still going to the auditions, but do I need to go to Trader Joe's and fill out an application? And actually, I have looked into some other opportunities. Going back into special education, I've sent in an application. Actually, I haven't heard back. I really like working with teenagers. I've been directing shows at Apple Valley High School for the last 3 years, and I like that age group, and I like to encourage and mentor and that age group, and with my struggles with addiction and depression, I feel like I could be of service to that age group as a counselor. So I'm open to that kind of stuff. But in this COVID world, I'm not really good at making really strong moves toward anything, because I've got a gig waiting for me. So should I just wait for the Music Man, or I don't know. I'm waiting for life to knock me on the head and send me clearly in the direction of my future.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hi, Todd. It's Kathy Atchley. I'm in the memoir group, and I met you at your mom and dad's birthday party.
Yeah, I know you.
Yes, and I follow you on Facebook now, and I always enjoy your posts. They're very thoughtful, and they always make me think, which I really appreciate. But I have a project for you, and I think you just gave me the title. I think you need to write a play called This COVID World.
Oh. Okay.
For future performances.
Okay. I thought when you said you have a project for me, I thought you were going to ask me to clean out your gutters.
Oh, no. My son does that.
Yeah,
okay.
There could be a part on the COVID world about a senior group that meets weekly and all the problems we encounter with Zoom.
Yeah, and we're all available too.
How are you guys doing? You sound like you're upset.
Demented?
Actually, our memoir group
world.
meets twice a week now instead of once a week.
Maybe it needs to be daily, Linda. Maybe it's group therapy.
It is group therapy, but we meet on Zoom for those who are still confined in some way. And then on Fridays, we meet in the park, social distancing with mask on. So,
Awesome.
So we're still writing and meeting and supporting one another. But our Zoom meetings, I think, are sometimes kind of funny. With phone calls and people walking in and out and doorbells ringing and people falling asleep during the meeting. You just never know.
I bet you can't guess who fell asleep in our meeting today, Todd.
Dwayne F. Petersen.
Well, it was time for a little snooze. I awakened early, and I don't even remember who was on. No reflection on who was on. I was just ready for a little nap.
Good for you.
Dwayne, we just took that as the ultimate compliment of friendship.
Don't let him live it down.
All right. Well, Dwayne, is there anything you'd like to say about Todd? Be gentle.
He's a good kid. He came down and took care of his old man when Carol first went to the nursing home, and
I'm out of the four kids. I'm the one that's not working, so I'm the first responder.
yeah,
I can get right down there in 2 hours.
yeah, and I finally convinced him that I didn't need anyone, but I was glad to have him and his siblings. They've all been here now. It's time for another round, Todd. Maybe when your mom comes home.
I'll come down for 4th of July, Dad.
Hey, you're on. I didn't have any plans.
Okay.
Yep. See you at 4th of July. You want me to
just
get
for
some
the day.
fireworks to light all
No.
at once?
No.
Okay.
All right. Well, I see we are at 3:29, which is pretty much the end of what we were scheduled to be. So, anybody, if you'd like to open your microphone to give Todd a round of applause, otherwise you can just show
Woo,
in your
woo, woo, bravo!
Bravissimo.
Encore, encore.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd, for sharing your story, for sharing your thoughts on the world in general, and just for, as has been mentioned a couple of times, for being a good person. I also enjoy reading your posts on Facebook, so I thank you for that sharing. That's not something that everybody does, and I think it's something that's a real healing gesture for your friends. So,
Thank you. I'm trying to be of service.
yes. And with that, I will end the meeting and say goodbye and thank you to you and to all of our friends who joined us along the way, especially the Memoirs group.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Mike.
Kamehameha.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you again.
Thank you.
See you, Todd. Bye-bye.
Love you, Dad.